or white evangelicals who maybe are not quite aware of how anti-Asian racism is impacting Asian Americans and Asian American churches, what would be some things you would say to them to help them in their process to start getting educated and why it matters?
So Asian Americans now have the worst mental health during COVID-19 of any racial group in America. And that's because we have four stressors that maybe other groups may not necessarily be facing. First of all, we're fearful of COVID-19. We know, because we're more connected to Asia, how dangerous it is. Then, because we are more likely to live in multi-generational households, I know my students who are Asian American, they were really concerned about not being spreaders, right? They don't want to get their grandparents sick. And so they're really stressed out about, like, I don't want to go out because I don't want to catch it and make my grandmother die. Thirdly, because of the racism, people were avoiding Asian businesses early on, and that led to early business closures. And a lot of people in the service sector and in the restaurant industry, they all lost their jobs. So Asian Americans have the highest rate of unemployment after African Americans now because of COVID-19. So we're stressed because we're worried about our health, our family's health, and then our economic livelihood. And then if we do go out, we are getting attacked, right? You have to decide, should I wear a mask or not? Either way, I could catch a disease or I could get attacked. 90% of Asian Americans say they're anxious or fearful about the racism they'll experience going out. So white evangelicals just can look at their Christian brothers and sisters and say, wow, this is a group that has been even more impacted during the pandemic, are having a difficult time, and we should really support our brothers and sisters when they're facing so much racism and hostility. We should help people when people are being yelled at or shunned. We should denounce racist rhetoric when we hear it.
Yeah, he's brought up like four key things that every Christian needs to hear to know how they can better support our Asian American and also Asian friends at church. Because just being aware of what you just said is super important. So thank you so much for sharing that. And also, Dr. Jeung, thank you so much for the work you have been doing to help fight this racism towards Asian Americans during this time. And because all the stuff you're documenting, all those stories, is super important to just show how this pandemic is impacting our country, and also just like the underlying, like you're saying, like at the baseline, this stuff is happening. It exists. The racism is there, and sometimes people don't pay attention to it. And you're just like documenting, just showing it is there. This is the baseline. Like sometimes it's more visible than others, but this is just like it just kind of shows like, and these are just some of the stories for people that feel comfortable enough to share it. There's a lot of other stories that are not being told.
Yeah, we always say it's just the tip of the iceberg, and America is founded on racism, right? So we have structural roots in the stealing of indigenous land and African American labor and Asian labor, right? So it's hard to extricate ourselves from the roots of American colonialism and racism.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out this video clip from the Delgado podcast. To get more videos like this, simply subscribe here on YouTube. You can also download the full episode of each show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or your favorite podcast player. Take care.